Hi everyone. The Criterion flash sale for October of 2022 is imminent, and I considered whether I should do a recommendation video because in just a matter of about 3 weeks we're going to have the Barnes & Noble half-price Criterion sale. And I've done, I think, 3 recommendation videos, and I made a playlist for those videos, and I'll link to them below. But I thought I'd do a video for the flash sale on movies that I haven't talked about much in the past. I think there's only one in this selection of 10 that I have done a single video on. And so then I thought I'd leave recommendations of the releases of 2022 for the November sale. So first off, I'm going to start off with Blowout, and this is a Brian De Palma film with starring John Travolta and Nancy Allen. I recently rewatched Sisters and did a video on that for my series on 1972, the films of 1972. And De Palma suddenly is interesting me more. You know, every time I rewatch some of these old films, I need to see some more. This is out in 4K. This is an older, I got this out when it originally came out in Blu-ray, and but you can get it in 4K now. And it's like many of De Palma's films, the starting point is other famous films from other film directors, and here we get a sort of a mashup of Michael Antonioni's Blow Up and Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, with a whole lot of Vertigo in here as well, and Hitchcock in general. Those elements used to bother me about De Palma's films. They don't bother me quite as much anymore. And this has always been one of my favorite De Palma films anyways, no matter what. I might think of all his referencing. John Travolta gives a really one of his best performances, I think, and Nancy Allen is very appealing, and so when she is in danger, we really feel for Nancy Allen in this film. Next up is a real classics. Now, if you like to collect all the great classics of world cinema, this is one that absolutely has to be in your collection, and this is The Rules of the Game from Jean Renoir, a film made in 1939. Pierre Fresnay and Jean Renoir himself star in this film, and it's mostly set in a chalet in France on the cusp of World War II. A group of rich people and celebrities come to the owner's party. There's all kinds of romances going on, romances that should be kept quiet but come out in the open. It's seen today sort of as a metaphor for the world on the brink of war, but with Jean Renoir, the brink of World War II. Jean Renoir is a filmmaker who deeply digs into the universality of all these goings on, and just a beautiful film. I think it's often in the top 10 films of critics. And this is a great addition. I'm not going to talk about the extras in these editions because this would take way too long. But this one has just a tremendous amount of extras in it, as do most of Criterion's. Next, I want to talk about another great filmmaker, Orson Welles. This is his Chimes at Midnight. This is from 1966. And it is a sort of amalgamation of a few plays by William Shakespeare. Mostly this is about Prince Hal, who becomes Henry V. So there's a good bit of Henry IV in this, and Merry Wives of Windsor. But it's basically about Falstaff, the Falstaff character who is in the who Shakespeare had to bring back for the Merry Wives of Windsor because he was such a popular figure. He is the sort of partying mentor to Prince Hal in his partying days before Prince Hal does become king. And he is the influence that must be shaken off in order for Prince Hal to become king. So there's a great deal of Wellesian melancholy in this film. It's got a beautiful, magnificent battle scene, just brilliantly staged. This is in the Orson Welles period of making films in Europe on the cuff, shutting down production, finding new backers, and then spending a whole lot of time editing the film together. This is a magnificently edited film with some great cameos, including Jean Moreau along the way. It's one of my favorite period of Welles is Touch of Evil, Chimes at Midnight, and The Trial. I think all those three films to me are the most meaningful ones. I know Citizen Kane is the one that, like the Rules of the Game, will pop up on the 10 best movies of all time. But I prefer these three films, and Chimes at Midnight and this is a beautiful restoration. Let's go to another famous filmmaker, Alfred Hitchcock, and this is Rebecca. Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine does not play Rebecca. Joan Fontaine, the character played by Joan Fontaine, does not have a name in the book either. Rebecca is Laurence Olivier's first wife, and Joan Fontaine is the second wife who is living under the shadow of Rebecca. Laurence Olivier playing this rich aristocrat who has this magnificent house, Manderley, and everywhere that Joan Fontaine looks, she finds Rebecca. She's not up to it. She's much younger than Laurence Olivier. Joan Fontaine is just perfectly cast. This is Alfred Hitchcock's first film for David Selznick, and as Hitchcock travels to the United States and Hollywood to make films. Selznick, of course, was a very intrusive producer. The backstory of Rebecca and Selznick and his memos, Selznick's favorite memos to Hitchcock. But Hitchcock wanted to make his name in Hollywood, and so he put up with it. He put up with Selznick, and he had a contract with him to make more films. This is a beautifully atmospheric film, and it's got some really Judith Anderson is just fantastic in this movie. Highly recommend Rebecca. Next up, we'll go to 1960, and this is The Fugitive Kind, directed by Sidney Lumet. And this is from a Tennessee Williams play I've seen on stage, Camino Real, I think that's the name. The Fugitive Kind was sort of, Tennessee Williams wrote the screenplay, and he changed it around with Marlon Brando as the star. So there's a lot more emphasis on Marlon Brando in the movie than there was in the play. Joanne Woodward, Anna Mignani. This to me is one of Brando's great performances and overlooked performances because he's quiet here. There's no rage to Brando here. Brando is underplaying rather than overplaying, and of course you could say his underplaying is so dramatic that it seems like he's overplaying. But I think he really gets to the heart of this character of a drifter who is employed in a store that is being run by Anna Mignani, who has a sick husband upstairs, but this sick husband is very, very jealous. And Brando gets involved with the errant daughter of the local rich people, played by Joanne Woodward. There's some great scenes in this film. Maybe you love Brando, and even if you don't, this is one of his most, I think, most indelible performances. It may actually be my favorite Marlon Brando performance. And then we have The Graduate from 1967. This is a film. I was a freshman in college when The Graduate came out in 1967. It was an absolute sensation. I went to see it 3 times on the first weekend. I was not alone in going and rewatching and going back and going back. This really struck a note for some reason with my generation, which is pretty peculiar because we were under the gun of the Vietnam War, and The Graduate seemingly is set in 1967, although the novel that it's based on was not. This has no mention of Vietnam, and it involves a college student played by Dustin Hoffman, who has just graduated, and he is eligible for the draft, but nothing is, it's just a world unto itself, The Graduate. But what a world. And Anne Bancroft as Mrs. Robinson, and Catherine Ross as her daughter that he falls in love with after having an affair with Mrs. Robinson. The complications ensue. It has great comic moments. Buck Henry worked on the screenplay. Mike Nichols had great comic timing. He was a stand-up comedian along with Elaine May. It really catches the times, and in particular, it uses songs from Simon and Garfunkel, who were probably at the height of their fame in the late 1960s. Now we'll turn to Douglas Sirk in 1954. And this is Magnificent Obsession, Rock Hudson, Jane Wyman. Douglas Sirk melodrama. Sirk loved melodrama. I love melodrama. I especially love Douglas Sirk melodrama. There's nothing like it. This edition does include the 1935 version of Magnificent Obsession that was directed by John Stahl, and Sirk remade, I think, 2 or 3 other John Stahl films. They both worked at the same studio, so it was not that hard to do. But this has so many great kind of over-the-top situations where a man played by a rich guy played by Rock Hudson in the opening sequences is a playboy who has no feeling for the rest of the world, total narcissist. He crashes his boat, and in the plot he has a piece of medical instruments, medical technique machine that Jane Wyman's husband needs, but it's not available. He dies. Rock Hudson is totally distraught, and he meets Jane Wyman, who doesn't realize that he is the cause indirectly. His playboy antics is the cause for her husband's death, and he pursues her, and then she becomes blind. It just goes on and on. I mean, there's just no holding back. Douglas Sirk here. John Stahl's version, a bit more controlled as far as the emotions, but if you like the Technicolor era of Douglas Sirk, this is really an amazing film. And now John Ford. So lots of classics here. My Darling Clementine, which is from 1946. Probably my favorite John Ford film. Henry Fonda in his emblematic shot of him on the porch and tottering on this chair that he's sitting on, and how far back he can go with it without falling off. It's the Wyatt Earp story. It's the gunfight at the OK Corral story. Supposedly, the gunfight is based on Wyatt Earp's version of the story as told to John Ford when John Ford was working in silent films. Who knows? It's an effective scene, whether it's the actual true-to-life version of what actually happened or not. It really doesn't matter. It's just the Clantons or John Ireland and Walter Brennan. They're really good villains for the Earps to come across. Victor Mature plays Doc Holliday, one of his best roles. I mean, he's really good in it. The beautiful, gorgeous Linda Darnell. I just absolutely loved Linda Darnell in the late 40s. I mean, she is just just such a great presence on the screen. She does not play Clementine, however, but this is one of Ford's most beautiful black and white films in the sense of community, being outside the community, a dance scene at the when they build a new church, they have a dance scene. We get the awkward, clumsy Wyatt Earp, Henry Fonda dancing with his darling Clementine. Just one beautiful scene after another. The next two are more obscure, the last two. And the first is The Hit by Stephen Frears, his first film with a great cast, Terence Stamp, John Hurt, Tim Roth's first film as well. This movie is worth seeing if just for Tim Roth, but we also have a really idiosyncratic performance from John Hurt and Laura Del Sol. I mean, the relationship between Hurt, who is playing a hitman, who has come to bring Terence Stamp back to Paris. This is set in Spain. Great use of location. Stamp's character has ratted on his gangster group, and he is in sort of a witness protection program in Spain, but they ferreted him out, and Tim Roth and John Hurt come to bring him back to Paris so they can torture him a bit before they kill him, if they're able to do that. Because this is a road movie, and as we go on the road, there's this odd relationship built up between Laura Del Sol and John Hurt. She is the girlfriend of a fellow gangster who's giving them safe haven. They think safe haven, and they don't know what to do with her, so they take her along. And this sadomasochistic, well, sadistic, I don't know if it's masochistic, but a sadistic relationship, very odd relationship develops as Laura Del Sol attempts to survive this arduous journey. And the last, I have made a video on this, but I never tire of promoting Luis Garcia Berlanga, a Spanish filmmaker of the 50s and 60s. This is from '63. One of the few, I think this is the only film of his that is available on physical release in region A. But Berlanga's other films are playing still, I believe, on the Criterion Channel. There's like 11 others, and I gobbled them up within about a week when they were first introduced, because he has a very strange comic style, very unique. He's The Executioner is about a man who works for a mortuary. He can't, even though he's a good-looking guy, played by the Italian actor Nino Manfredi. This is a Spanish film. He can't get any girlfriends once they learn of his profession. And then also he falls in love with an executioner's daughter. She can't get any boyfriends because once they find out that her father is an executioner, they don't want anything to do with her. So as the film develops, Nino Manfredi character, sort of in order to keep the family together, has to become a apprentice executioner, much against his will. This is such a great dark satire, and Berlanga is a director who really needs. We need to get more attention to him with some more Blu-ray. I don't think Blu-ray editions, physical releases, which I think you can only get in Spain, and I don't even know if they're in print. But one of the great undiscovered directors, even though he is playing on the Criterion Channel, he has been discovered, but still overlooked. Okay, thanks a lot. Enjoy yourself if you're going to participate in this sale. I'm not sure what I'm going to buy. I spent so much money recently on buying horror films for October in my 1972 series that I really don't have much left to spend in this sale. I might wait a few weeks to the Barnes & Noble Criterion half price sale. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.